Hello friends, and welcome to another project with me, Lisa Taggart. Witchy we're here, and yes, even witches take vacations before the high season of Halloween. So if you want to find out how this was made, let's have a look at the materials first of all. To start off with, masking sheets, also some watercolour card, hot pressed from Lavinia Stamps. We're using 3 pastel pencils from our lovely Van Gogh pastel set. Blue, white and brown. We're also using this fabulous paint set from Kuretake, and we're mainly going to use some blues, the sandy colour, brown and the white. And there they are, aren't they absolutely glorious? I enjoy using these. Moving on then, we're starting off with some masking fluid and a fine brush from the fluid set. We're also going to use this brush from the large brush set from Lavinia Stamps. We're also using a couple of colours of VersaFine Clair, Twilight and Pinecone for stamping. For colouring, I've picked out some of the Clean Colour Zig water-based markers. We've got a blue-grey, a pale blue, a brown, a sort of neutral green colour and another pale neutral. Also some Posca pens in blue, turquoise and cream. I've got a fine liner pen in black and white, and also the Stabilo All black pencil, but a black pastel would do. Also some stickles. Now the stamps, and as you can see we're starting off with the Carriage Dwelling from the recent September new releases. Also the small broomstick from the set and this lovely little flower set. We've got a bird from the bird set and the other birds as well. Forest spruce, which I love, and wild summer flower, and finally orchid grass. A lovely selection this week. So if you want to convert all of those into something that looks a little like this and join the witch on her summer holidays, just keep on watching. Now to begin, we're taking our watercolour card 5" by 8", and we're going to do the stamping first of all, or some of it. So I'm taking my Twilight in VersaFine Clair, inking up the stamp and going to place it down just right of centre and not too far up the page. Dry that off because we're going to now use the masking fluid to give it a light coat. Don't have to do the bottom half of the wheels, just where the wheels meet the bottom of the carriage, and just lightly paint this in with a fine brush and make sure then that it's dry before you paint over the top. But before we do the painting, I'm taking this strip that I've cut of the masking sheet, and I'm placing it just across the top, about 1.5 inches down and at the top of the carriage. And this is to cover up, or this is to create a horizon line. Mine's a bit wonky. Make sure yours is straight because it has to be straight for the composition. Now I'm using my water and I'm activating the lovely paints. And the first colour I'm using is cobalt blue. This one, and it's a really lovely colour, and all I'm doing is sweeping that across the card, and I'm aiming not to saturate where it meets the masking sheet. I really want the most saturated part of this portion to be at the top in terms of pigment and colour, and then gradually fading down to meet the masking sheet. And there we are. Now that it's removed and dried, I'm going to use the masking tape sheet, and you can use artist tape for this if you have that, and I'm placing that to mask off the next section, which is the sea. And this is a colour called Malachite, and I've mixed that with the colour turquoise blue to create this Caribbean sea colour, I suppose. And again, I'm just sweeping this across the page in stripes, I suppose, and adding a little bit of variety in terms of tones and colour. And I'm also doing it diagonally to the right. I don't want this straight across. I want it to have as I say, a slight diagonal when it meets the carriage, because it's going to sweep in with a bit of a wave to meet the beach. So, and if you want to remove some, you dry off your brush on a piece of kitchen towel and just brush over it lightly. I'm thinking that I might have some light coming in that centre area, so that's what I was thinking when I was doing that. But I think in the end up I add extra paint to it. Now for the white, I'm just going to plop that in at the front to indicate where it meets the beach area. And I'm thinking about perhaps having a little wave as it meets the shore. And this, I'm adding the top of the wave just very lightly, an indication of that. And also the frothy bit where it meets the sand as well. And some light. As you're doing this, I mean, I'm just making it up. I don't have a reference picture or anything. You just keep looking at it and see if you're happy with it. I think in the end up, I started to think that actually it needed a bit more depth, particularly in that centre area. And certainly where there's a wave happening, it needs to be darkened at the top of the wave. So I'm adding a little bit of a darker stripe, and really that's all it is. It's stripes of colour going across, and you leave that to dry basically and see if you're happy with it later. Now this is a great colour, and this colour is called Natural Beige, and it was the perfect colour for sand, particularly when it's mixed with the brown, which was Raw Umber Deep, and I'm about to use that now. So I'm just again sweeping it, nothing too particular, sweeping it diagonally across the card and creating a deeper area at the foreground. And I really just continue to build that up. I also thought at this stage I would add a light indication of a shadow under the little carriage, and I've mixed the beige and the brown as I did for the front of the picture, same colour. And now I'm just adding some more white where it hits the sand, and wait for this, or dry this off and take away the masking material. So now that that's dry, you can see that I continued to build it up with the brown and the beige and deepened that foreground area just in the same way as before. I also added another colour, and that colour is called cerulean blue. I thought that it needed a wee bit of variety there, so I've added that, and that'll do as a base. And I'm now removing the masking gum carefully, not too rough with it. It comes off quite easily. And remember to wash the gum or dab it lightly before you do that, so the paint doesn't get on the white part underneath. Now I'm taking the brown in this stamping pad, and I'm also taking this lovely spruce stamp, which I really love. It's one of my favourites. And I'm using it on this occasion up the way, as I tend to do, just to create the impression of beach grass. And it's a really useful stamp, both for stamping down and up. And I just love it to mix in with other types of foliage. So I'm following the curvature of the sand at the front. And now I'm taking the lovely meadow grass, which is another favourite. I just adore how beautifully fine these stamps are. Such tiny detail makes all the difference. And I'm just stamping them randomly. And I should say I have a copy paper to stamp them off in the first instance, because I want second generation stamping. I don't want it to be too deep. So that's what I've been doing, stamping it off first of all before placing it down. I'm deepening up the front part there, just here and there. So that's it. Starting to build that up. And then finally I'm taking this beautiful lacy flower stamp, which is really, really beautiful. And again, I'm following the curvature of the foreground and putting them where I think they would look nice. I don't want to cover up the little cart, so it's just as a frame for the picture. And there we are. So drying that off before I go on to the next step, which is to use the pastel pencils. And what I'm doing here is adding an indication of some light clouds in the background. I'm not going too large with these little clouds. They really are like little puffs of smoke, and I'm dabbing them with my finger to blend them in, and they attach really nicely, the pastel pencil, to a dry layer of these paints. Make sure that your paints are dry before you do this, and it's just little circles and little dots blended into each other. And I would say not to go too crazy with the clouds and leave an area where we can stamp the birds later. Now with the blue, I thought we'd add a reflection of the sky into the water, and that's why I used the blue. And of course I'm adding another cloud to the top there just for balance purposes. So next I am going to move on to the colouring of the little cart, and I thought I would use this Posca pen in cream as a base for what I want to create. And I suppose in my head I thought this little, and why I'm at the beach I should explain, is that I thought this little witch's cart looks like a boat, at least the bottom half of it does, and that's what gave me the idea to put it in this setting. So I wanted sort of old beachy wood. And I'm taking, now that I've got the base, I'm taking these colours, which is blue and pale neutral, a brown and a blue grey. And I'm just going to use them to build up, first of all, the bottom half. And I want it to look like almost driftwood or beachy wood. And I just keep going with the various colours until I get the desired effect. And just using the same colours to carry on colouring the wheels, and also to add shadows to the top of the cart as well. And I've taken also the pale blue, because this is a very beachy colour, and the idea was to almost have like a beach hut look to the top. I'm not sure that it was very successful, but I tried anyway, and I'm just running that down. It's like a bluey green, so it mixes well with the brown. And now I'm restoring the little window frames, because my colouring isn't very precise, as you probably know by now. So adding now back some of the little details, and I'm taking my black pencil and darkening up the stamping that perhaps has been lost by the other layers, and just darkening it up generally and adding some shadow to bring it to more of the foreground. I chose this the same pencil as I used for the sea, just to colour in the windows, which I think worked quite well. And then I took the brown pastel pencil to deepen the shadow underneath the little wheels, and it's just a little nod to a shadow on the sand. Now I'm inking up the lovely group of birds, and using twilight to do that, and popping them there in the little space. There we are, we have our birdies. And next up then I'm going to create the little plant arrangement in this beautiful little jug. And there are lots of little stamps that you can choose from this set, and I have selected a couple of them, and they are as the pound stamps are. Very, very useful, all these little small stamps. And as you can see, I'm also taking that to add a little more texture and darkness to certain areas in the foreground. And all these little stamps mix in beautifully together, as you can see. Next, I'm going to add some shadow to the jug, and also taking my same pastel pencil to add some light parts. And I've put in an extra little flower as well, just to balance that out. Now I'm fixing the wave by taking my white gel pen and just using the painting that I've already placed down to make it stand out a little bit more. And this part is, you know, that lacy part where the water comes into the sand and is bubbly, and there are lots of little bubbles coming up, and you know, lots of energy with the wave. And so just adding little dots to indicate the bubbles, not forgetting also to carry on the same wave on the other side, and adding extra little, it's just the impression of little waves in the distance, and also little dabs of light here and there as well. It's easy just to add little dabs of white. And at this stage I also decided to colour in the tiny little dots on the flowers, and I think it really does make a difference, so I would recommend you would do this if you have the patience for it. Next up, I'm taking my Posca pen in the sort of minty turquoise colour, which is one of my favourites, and just to complement the colours in the ocean, I'm picking out a few of the leaves, not all of them, just here and there, and also then taking the cream Posca again, and just very randomly drawing lines to indicate sort of more foliage and grass. And also to age the wood and give that more driftwood effect, I added it to the brown on the colouring, and of course then start to create little light highlights on the carriage, just to lift it from the background a little bit, and thinking where the light might hit it on the top and on the tops of the wheels, etc. So adding some stickles from Extra Sparkle, and it did come out in a blob here, which was a happy accident because I decided then to spread rather a lot of it across this section, and it worked out quite well because it really did create the impression of the sea having that little bit of twinkle from the sun. So I carried that on up, and then started to embellish where again I thought the light might be hitting certain areas on the little carriage and the flowers and the wheels and wherever you fancy. And any colour of stickles or any glitter of choice would do, of course, for this. The stickles dries quite quickly and is just a lot less messy to use, I find. Now off camera I added the little bird and also the broomstick just across the top there. Apologies that it wasn't on camera. I also added some colouring with the brown pastel pencil and the white gel pen. I just thought it needed a nod to the witch by having the broomstick, and also like to have a creature of some kind in my pictures. So there you have it. That's it now complete. I hope you enjoyed the project, and of course take good care of yourselves until next time, and above all get creating, be brave and enjoy the adventure.